We're kicking off today with Randy Orton, who officially joined SmackDown this week and made quite the statement by RKOing SmackDown General Manager Nick Aldis. Given Aldis' no-nonsense approach to being GM, many are expecting some kind of punishment for the Legend Killer, and what could the British Authority figure have in mind? One potential scenario could see Aldis suspend Orton, despite the latter's recent return, as it was with a suspension that Aldis recently punished Kevin Owens. Suspending Orton would also give WWE time to stretch this storyline until Royal Rumble without any timeline constraints, culminating in a match at the Royal Rumble. Perhaps Aldis could go one step further and have Orton banned from WWE's next premium live event, meaning the match with Reigns would have to wait. Instead of Orton, Reigns would face somebody else in January, while the match with the Viper would be at the much-anticipated Elimination Chamber Perth show in Australia. If Aldis decides he wants to keep Orton on TV, however, and level the Viper with a hefty fine, something we've seen from countless authority figures in the past. As a top name, though, Orton would be easily able to pay off said fine, and we'll have to wait to SmackDown to see how Nick Aldis deals with his newest acquisition. What do you think Aldis should do with Orton, though? Leave your ideas for the GM in the comments below. Right now, AEW fans are abuzz wondering who is under the devil mask and who is the person making life hell for the reigning world champion, MJF. This week, MJF was attacked by masked and hooded goons working for the devil, and one WWE Hall of Famer feels this is getting very familiar. On Busted Open Radio, Bully Ray said this storyline is reminding him of Impact Wrestling's Aces and Eights, and added that he has no problem with AEW borrowing ideas from that angle. If this is the case, then we may be able to project where the Devil storyline should go, as the Aces and Eights saw members unmasked one by one before the ring leader revealed themselves. That leader was none other than Ray himself, who had been a top face up until that reveal, and if AEW are borrowing, that could mean that someone seen as a face is behind the mask. Right now, many are predicting Adam Cole as the Devil, which would fit in with the Aces and Eights theory, and who do you think is behind the mask? Cole, or someone completely different? Over to Collision, which was headlined by a Continental Classic match between Bryan Danielson and Eddie Kingston in the former's first match in over a month. Both men are skilled strikers, but Kingston's size gave him an advantage, and it was up to Danielson to use his technical skills to out-wrestle the ROH World and New Japan Strong champion. Kingston had already lost once in the tournament, so there was a sense of desperation, while Danielson, wearing the biggest eye patch you've seen, wanted to protect his eye. Nigel McGuinness was hilarious on commentary as his pettiness with Danielson resulted in the Brit yelling out tips to Kingston, but that wasn't enough to turn the tide. Despite Kingston focusing on Danielson's orbital bone injury in the second half, Bryan hit the running knee for the win, earning 3 points and giving Kingston another loss. A hard-hitting affair in which some of the chops had a literal echo, this was the rightful main event and presented Danielson as a favorite to win the whole tournament. During the latest Rampage taping, El Hijo del Vikingo, Pentagon, and Commander faced the Workhorsemen and Brian Cage in a 6-man tag, but one spot didn't go as planned. That spot saw the faces dive out of the ring, but Vikingo got caught up in the ropes, with this embarrassing moment overshadowing what was otherwise a fine match. When footage of the botch was shared online, fans had a field day, with one saying that Tony Khan should air the spot, while another simply said, "Amateur embarrassing wrestling." AEW has had its share of botches like any company, but this is one of the worst we've seen from AEW, and hopefully all 6 men will have learned from this embarrassing situation. More from AEW as Abaddon had been missing from AEW TV for some time, but this week the Living Dead girl made her return after a month away as part of Collision. Abaddon picked up a convincing victory over Kiera Hogan last night before being confronted by another spooky wrestler, AEW's TBS champion, Julia Hart. This could be the beginning of a new TBS title feud between Julia Hart and Abaddon, and don't be surprised if we see these two face off later this month at AEW World's End. Speaking of Julia Hart, she's one of AEW's most popular stars at the moment, despite spending much of her time without an official deal, but now the TBS champion is All Elite. Fightful Select reports that Hart's deal has been changed from a per-date talent to a full-time contract, but this was done quietly, and she didn't receive the All Elite graphic. It's likely that AEW didn't want fans to find out that one of their top stars had been on a per-date deal up until recently, and whatever the case may be, Hart is now officially a part of AEW. It was during the infamous December 2014 Art of Wrestling podcast episode that CM Punk and Colt Cabana spoke negatively against Dr. Chris Amann, resulting in a defamation lawsuit. Well, Punk and Cabana won the case, an argument over legal costs ended their friendship, and it was reported not too long ago that Amann had retired from WWE. It turns out that this isn't the case, as Sean Ross Sapp reports that Amann is still with WWE despite the previous reports, and was seen at this week's SmackDown. With Punk back, it'll be interesting to how the pair will be able to work together, if they interact at all, as WWE will be hoping to keep any past issues firmly in the past. More from AEW Collision as Brody King earned 3 more points in the AEW Continental Classic with a hard-fought win over Claudio Castagnoli. In another Blue League match, Andrade El Idolo best Daniel Garcia to earn 3 points, and there was a show of respect between the two after the match. The 3 tournament matches we saw in Collision felt completely different, but they were equally entertaining, with this match being the most technical encounter. Castagnoli vs. King was a slugfest, and the Danielson vs. Kingston match was a solid middle ground, featuring both technical skills and heavy strikes. In tag team action on Collision, the Kingdom defeated the Iron Savages, while the House of Black defeated Christopher Daniels and Matt Sydal. In an impromptu match, AAA Mega Champion Commander defeated Kip Sabian in what was little more than a filler match, albeit an entertaining one at that. So that was this week's Collision, and from an in-ring standpoint, this was an all-time top 3 episode of AEW's newest show, complete with 3 outstanding Continental Classic matches. A brief appearance from Timeless Tony Storm proved popular, and it's great that Abaddon is getting a chance to shine, and this week's show saw a lot of development. FTR and the House of Black are heading to a big fight, while Miro and CJ Perry had a chance to talk, and though this show saw filler, everyone did a great job of making sure there were no weak spots. Now, Chris Jericho is one of the biggest stars in wrestling competing today, and this week, the inaugural AEW World Champion made a surprise appearance in Vietnam. Jericho was a surprise appearance for VPW, one of the nation's hottest promotions, and given the reactions from the crowd, it's clear they were thrilled by his shocking appearance at the show. On December 15th, in just 12 days' time, ROH will host its final Battle pay-per-view, but the show is seriously struggling when it comes to moving tickets. That event will happen at the Curtis Caldwell Center, which has a capacity of 8,500, but the show has been set up to host just 3,722 fans, and things get worse from here. Right now, just 996 tickets have been distributed for the pay-per-view, 26.76% of the available seats for the show, and on Twitter, ex-AEW star Joey Janela reacted to these poor numbers. That's run smaller buildings 100%. Why isn't this in the New York City market? And run ROH like an independent promotion, 3 to 4 shows a month. Find a booker and someone to run the ship. Tony doesn't have to be there. I guarantee a huge increase in Honor Club subscribers and a better overall exciting product for fans. This is AEW Dark Deluxe. Only 2 matches have been confirmed for Final Battle, so it's not hard to see why tickets aren't flying, and Tony Khan will have to do something big soon or risk a very embarrassing show. At All In, Mercedes Mone appeared in the crowd, and while many are hoping to see her join AEW one day, that day won't likely be anytime soon. On Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer said that Mone isn't the definite signing some fans once thought she was, and pointed out that she has aspirations outside of wrestling. There's also the possibility that Mone could return to WWE, as with Vince McMahon no longer running shows and her positive relationship with Triple H from NXT, a comeback could happen. Mone left WWE on bad terms last year, but a lot has changed since then and now, and while she could be All Elite one day, her signing shouldn't be seen as an inevitability. In March, Jeff Hardy underwent eye surgery, and while this was a surgery the charismatic Enigma needed, Jeff is continuing to struggle with his vision. On an episode of his brother's Extreme Life podcast, Jeff said that he's still experiencing double vision, but said that he can see where he needs to in the ring. Jeff suggested that he just needs to do more matches to get used to this double vision, and we're hoping that this issue can be fixed for the former world champion. And we're ending with Drew McIntyre, who isn't interested in making friends, and that goes for members of the Judgment Day, especially Dominik Mysterio. In footage from their holding cell at Survivor Series, McIntyre gave a threat to Dominik, saying that if Damian Priest or the faction messes up, he'll mess Mysterio up. This was just one of several moments where Drew was clearly sick of being locked up with Dirty Dom, so Mysterio should probably steer clear of McIntyre from here on.